In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Alright, where is he? Is he in here yet? Where did he go?
Hey, what the hell is he? Where's he at?
Here he is.
Hey,
It's Jack.
kind of being all Rodney today there, aren't you?
No, I was just talking under my breath. I was like, where is he? I hope you weren't sitting over there by the lady with the parakeet-looking thing on her sweatshirt.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say it was a real bird.
No, it's...
So there's...
It's a bejeweled... It's like a bejeweled cartoon of a bird. It's very strange.
Oh. Well, I'm glad it's not a live bird, because, first of all, it wouldn't be a woman. That's one of those Jack Hansen pet peeves that go way back. It's like, and listen, I love animals. I mean, so I'd be the first person to just, you know.
Of course you do.
But first of all, I don't think exotic animals should be kept as pets at all. I
or
think
service animals, for that matter.
Well, dogs and cats and maybe fish and a few other assorted things, but this thing when we get into lizards and these exotic birds and stuff, they need to be out in the wild where they belong. Anyway, that aside, like, you don't have to encounter the guy with the parrot on his shoulder too many times before you, as an adult male, go, not having any luck doing, like, regular lines on women. Like, this is what you have to do to draw attention to yourself. And I'm sure you love the bird. I hope you do. But you know, let's love the bird inside closed doors where it's not quite so showy.
Yeah.
I've never enjoyed the guy that goes out in public with the fucking exotic bird on his shoulder routine. It's just a little too, I mean, flamboyant, turgid. You know, you pick your word, bombastic. It's a little too needy, if you ask me. Because it's like they're never eager to show you the bird. They act like nothing's there. They just stand there like,
what bird?
Look at that. Well, there's an exotic, rare gray and brown macaw striped with, you know, the albino macaw on my shoulder. How'd that get there? It's like, oh, give me a freaking break already. Would you please just, you know, see a therapist?
So I was just looking it up. A service animal is a dog that is individually trained to do work or perform tasks for a person with a disability. But what is the one right below service animal, where it's not like you really need the animal, but you need the animal?
It's an emotional support animal.
Support animal.
It's called an ESA, and I actually heard that acronym last night because my girlfriend works in a field of social work where people have ESAs. And ESAs, by the way, can be anything. There was a story about a dude in Florida, of course, that had this ESA alligator, and it escaped. And apparently the guy lost his shit. It was just like ready to go on a 3-state killing spree because this ESA alligator was lost. And I'm thinking, no offense to the reptile kingdom, but who looks to an alligator for emotional support?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't a well-placed, like, what are those things? Squishmallows? Wouldn't an inanimate object do just fine for this man if we're down to a lizard?
I would say it's probably a problem when your ESA eats somebody else's service animal or somebody else's ESA. That's probably when it's a problem.
Well, you know, ESAs are now the brand new and absolutely apparently ironclad way to get around the no pets clause.
Yes.
If you're a renter, like, in fact, we just went through that because we like to stop in at the local pet store. Sometimes the local animal shelter will host animals or the pet store will host local animal shelter animals for adoption events. And, you know, my girlfriend's just insane, loves cats. She just can't get enough kitties. So we go through there and look at the kitties and the other things. And they're always kind of pushing them on you, like, oh. And I always just say, no pets, my apartment, no pets. And immediately the response from all of them is, oh, just say they're an ESA. Just say they're an emotional support animal. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that, actually. Because even though all of the pets I've ever had in my life have been great friends and they do offer some degree, if not a large degree of emotional support, I'm not going to hide behind the ESA tag to get around my no pets clause. I'm going to honor my no pets clause and just get my deposit back, maybe. So,
yeah, it sounds like a really bad episode of Portlandia right there, if you ask me. Well, so
yeah.
An emotional support animal provides comfort and companionship to people with disabilities. So to qualify for an ESA, a person must have a diagnosed mental illness or disability, and a licensed mental health professional must recognize that the animal provides them with psychological or emotional benefits. So it's not just a pet. You have to have a diagnosed mental illness. So the other day I was in the gym, no joke, and I looked to the left and there was a dog with a service vest
jacket
on.
Yeah.
And there was a lady running on the treadmill, and the service dog just sat beside the treadmill. It's the first time I've ever seen a service dog in the gym.
Wow.
Before. And I kind of questioned whether or not it was really a service animal. It did have the vest on, but I think technically you're also supposed to have some paperwork with you. I don't know. Anyway. It wasn't bothering me. It was interesting to see a lady running on a treadmill with a dog sitting right there next to her.
I don't think it's that difficult to get a doctor's signature or fake a doctor's signature. I mean, that's a lot more formalized than I would have imagined. But, a priori, all animals can apparently be service animals because or they can be emotional support animals because we all have some kind of a mental illness. What'd you say? We all have some kind of a disability?
Diagnosed or undiagnosed.
Listen, we are all disabled because we are here living a human life on planet Earth. And there's no shame in that. I'm just saying all of us have that disability, that same disability. So as far as I'm concerned, writ large, why? No problem. Everybody should get a dog or a turtle or something if they really need it. Like, I remember going to... This is kind of back before I had a regular doctor, I guess. It goes back some years. And so whenever I would need anything, I just go to this, it's kind of a low-cost clinic we have here in town. It wasn't that I couldn't go see the big, health clinic here. I had insurance and everything.
Right next to the soup kitchen?
Yeah, I kind of liked the local one that was more low-cost and for the people, because I just liked the mission a lot more. So I went there. And I was about to fly, and of course, as it's been, I think, established on Existence Brewing already, Jack is absolutely terrified of flying. And so I needed to go get some benzos. I needed to go get some Valium so I could do this flight that I had to go on, or I had chosen to go on and didn't want to miss or something. And so I just walked in and said, yeah, I have an extreme phobia of flying. I need to see a doctor. I need to get him to write me a prescription for something to help me out. All right, have a seat. We'll call you in. Call me in, and it's Doogie Howser. At the time, I'm not 51 like I am now. I might be late 30s, 36, 37. This kid couldn't have been more than 26. I mean, I don't know who they gave me, and just this terrible, stuffy attitude, just this horrible white coat, it was just awful. And so he was hemming and hawing with me about this, and he was just like, well, we need to write something. And I'm just, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I just need something to get me through this flight. Can you do that? He said, yes, but I have to actually say that you have something. So he said, we'll just write maladjustment disorder. And I'm just like, yeah, fucking A, you've been out there lately and lived for 2 minutes at all? Of course I'm maladjusted to this freaking avarice, horrible, existence. Are you kidding me? I mean, of course it's beautiful, miracle, but this human thing? Yeah, I'm maladjusted. I have a soul in my body and a beating heart in my chest that can actually thrum with love from time to time, if not most of the time, except for instances like this where I'm completely pissed off and ready to just rage at you. Maladjustment disorder. Give me a...
Listen here, Neil Patrick Harris. You get your pad out. I'm surprised that they were even able to have a conversation like that with you, because what are those people called that go to the doctor just because they want pills? Which is essentially what you were doing. But Valium, I don't think, is a narcotic.
It's a benzodiazepine, and its times have absolutely changed. You could not do that now.
This was a few years ago.
Yeah, this is, like I said, been some time back. I'm 51 now. I was in my late 30s, I want to say, at the time, right in there. And that was back when you could do that. And I did the same thing in Florida when I lived there briefly because, again, had to fly. So just went into a walk-in clinic. And the guy was great. I loved that doctor. Now, unlike Doogie, this guy was awesome. He was a little older than me. Maybe that helped. But he was one of those, I've lost my hair, so I'm going to just go ahead and shave the rest. But he had these red clown pants on. He had these bright red pants on.
Like Patch Adams?
Yeah. It was like going in to see a clown or something. I don't like clowns, but it was almost like, I'm getting ready for the show, but I'm also a doctor, so I'm going to dash in here real quick and write you a prescription before I start juggling pins for the lobby.
Well, in Florida, they're probably handing out Valium on the side of the road. I mean,
no. Actually, before I moved there, I was told somebody happened to see that I carried my prescription bottle with me in the car. And a lot of people, obviously, especially people who have panic disorder and anxiety and stuff like I do, carry that medication all the time. So you have your stash. You have a stash. If you're a lady, you have it in your purse. If you're a man, I don't know, you carry it in your purse. Because they have male purses now, too, So I don't know. You always have it nearby. One of the reasons is because it's like an emotional support pill. It's almost like, okay, I've got them, so I'm calm just knowing that I have something to calm me down chemically if I, in fact, do start having a panic attack. It gets to that level. It's not, I would never wish it on, I don't have a worst enemy, but I would never wish it on, like, even, Dave Ramsey or those two guys that took Rush Limbaugh's place. I wouldn't even want them to have panic disorder because it's horrible. But they told me, because they saw that I was carrying this in my car, they said, you need to be very careful about what's in the bottle. And I said, well, it's just my prescription. They said, okay, but it's a Washington prescription, right? And I said, of course. They said, when you get to Florida, have it changed out to a brand new pharmacy, just get it refilled or something, or go see the doctor and get a new prescription, and dump the Washington State prescription into the bottle that has the Florida prescription. Yeah. Because if you ever get stopped and for whatever reason they decide to search your car and they find a prescription bottle with benzodiazepines in it from another state, you are looking at trouble. You're going to be detained at the very least. You're going to be questioned. You're going to be handcuffed by, what's going on with the bottle that's not from hereabouts in the Sunshine State?
You ain't from around here, boy, are you?
Yeah, so it's like, dang, it scared the hell out of me. So I took their advice. I did that when I got there.
Oh, Florida. All the good things happen in Florida, don't they?
Yeah, good old FL. Speaking
of doctors, I was doing some surfing. Do we say that anymore, that we were surfing the internet? Remember when that was a big thing? I'm surfing the web, man.
I think so. I haven't heard that it's passé, so
no, but it
works for me.
And when did it ever become synonymous with surfing? I mean, it has nothing to do with surfing at all.
I don't know. I mean, it's a web, after all, the World Wide Web, so I would guess that you would stick in it like a spider's web. Like I'm sticking, I'm writhing in the spider. I'm writhing on the web today.
I'm going to go spin a web, man. Anyway, so.
No, it's the web, so you're wriggling in the web to try and get out, but it has you in its clutches spending money and clicking on more cat bait and all that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, that's weird. So anyway, I was doing some surfing, metaphorically speaking, and I ran across a statistic that COVID-19 fell to the 10th leading cause of death just recently.
Fell from
So it
what?
fell, and it said early in the pandemic, the coronavirus was the nation's third leading cause of death. And I don't know if it got any higher than that. But it dropped to fourth in 2022, and now in 2024, it is the 10th leading cause of death. And it kind of got me thinking about those times, those dark days of the pandemic. And I was thinking about this, too, the other day. Like, I think there's a lot of things that we all experienced in that time that were very life-changing. I know you went through a very life-changing event around that time. You were moving, or you were in the process of moving to, or no, you had just gotten back from Florida, I think, at that time.
I'd been back for a couple years when the pandemic kicked in. I think, I don't know. I, as you know, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist because I do absolutely believe in a they and a them. And I don't, obviously I don't get too far down those holes with the whole who made it, what laboratory did it loose from, did it even happen, is it a complete mind fuck? I mean, all that stuff, because I don't have empirical evidence one way or another. I'm not on the inside, and I'm not going to go searching for that. So I just stay away from those things. But I'm always questioning what's really happening and for what reasons, because I do know that the people who run all of this are diabolical sons of bitches, and they're capable of just about anything. And there are a lot of things that we would probably not imagine them capable of that they are. And I'm not talking about just releasing some virus that makes a few people sick and they, a bunch of them die, and, what we went through basically in pragmatic terms, in literal terms, prosaic terms. I'm talking about like running a mind fuck on people, because that's really constantly the game anymore. From the top down is this battle, this mental battle with what's real and what's not. And we're kind of doing that anyway. When we just live life, we're always sort of on the fringes of the ethereal, or touching the other side of, okay, what is real? How do I define reality individually as opposed to what the world is looking at? All those things. At least I'm thinking of those things, of course. But what I noticed was the first year of the pandemic was okay. Of course, I spent the first year of the pandemic kind of with somebody. I mean, I was in a relationship during most of it. And so I think that helped perhaps take the edge off, because I had somebody to be around, and because I was, pretty by myself at that time. I had some friends, but wasn't going out to do a whole lot. I'm kind of a solitary cat on my own. But then that following year got really difficult. I went through down the home stretch of the pandemic, seemingly when all of us felt like they really could have eased up on a lot of the restrictions, and they weren't yet. Like my panic disorder, which had been always pretty moderate before that, it had been pretty selective too, because it was very circumstantial, it was very situational, or it ratcheted up and got into corners of my world that I didn't think were encroachable. I didn't think that, I thought I was impregnable when it came to my job, for example, like radio studio, and I was still working sports at the time to make a little extra money, high school football and stuff. And it crept into the booth up there, and it got really bad. It got to the point where I was frightened for my future, because that next level of agoraphobia was starting to happen. I was not able to stand in line at the post office without having an attack, and it didn't seem to be triggered by anything logical. It was just a physical reaction. These were just inexplicable physical reactions, because everybody I saw for it went over the same set of flashcards or Rorschach test and said, so what are you thinking about? And it's just like, that's the thing, dude. I'm not thinking about anything that's triggering this. It's just happening. Yeah. So it's very perplexing for them and also for me. But I think one of the things that during the pandemic really rattled people, and I think was actually very good for them, very, very good for them, but it just rattled them because they're not used to it, is because we were all shut in, and because everything was closed, and because the number of superficial experiences, the number of external pleasurings and external stimuli were vastly reduced.
Or routines,
that involve the same thing were reduced. You were forced to do a hell of a lot of looking in the mirror. You were just absolutely forced to kind of reckon with, okay, here I am. What am I? Mm-hmm. What am I doing? What does my life mean? And I think that made a lot of people go buggy, because philosophy, sadly, is the least favorite subject of most people in college. And it would be my favorite, of course, but, I'm the odd duck as usual, like I like. But I think that's what happened during the pandemic that drove a lot of people kind of crazy or batshit, sort of just stirring around was, damn, man, I have to think about stuff now because I don't have anything else to do. And the number, again, of distractions for my existence here has been vastly limited in an external capacity. Yes, they're still online. Yes, there's still that whole thing.
Right.
And that's a huge distraction as it is. But I think it kind of forced the hand of some people. And even though it drove them nuts and it got to me even perhaps, I think it was good for us. I think we've come out the other side maybe a little bit. And I'm hoping that, we're a tastier Jordan almond than we were when we started baking through that thing. But I don't know.
Yeah, it was a strange time. And I was very cognizant of the fact that there were jobs out there that people literally were not able to fulfill, or maybe their income was impacted because they weren't able to wait on tables, or they weren't able to do these things that, maybe they were working in an event center and they had to lay off a bunch of people. But I mean, I was fortunate enough, like you, to be in an industry that was fairly flexible in terms of, we were kind of an information source. So we weren't like essential, but we weren't non-essential. So it was kind of one of those things where I think we felt fairly good about our job and doing something. But the thing that I was really fascinated about was how much time I spent thinking about our government, and not just like a political standpoint, but more like how much control do they really have over the things that I need to do? I need to go to the grocery store. Well, they're saying you can't go to the grocery store. Well, why are they saying that I can't go to the grocery store? Well, because you might get coronavirus. Well, what is it going to do to me? Well, we don't know. And so to me, it was almost kind of like this information vacuum. We didn't have the information. We didn't know anything about it. And so then it came down to trust. And am I going to trust that what you're telling me is accurate? And then I think as the time went on, we started just getting more and more political. And then, the pendulums started getting further apart. And then before you knew it, this state was open, this state was closed. And, then just that started. But I do think there at first, it was very much like, we don't really know what this is. And I remember saying something to my dad, yeah, they're probably going to close down the stock market. And he was just like, well, why would they do that? And I said, Dad, this is kind of a big deal. Like, they're telling us not to go to work.
Yeah, for sure. I think you, first of all, could be corrected on this fact that radio and television, radio, which is what we were doing at the time, was in fact considered essential because we were mechanisms for public information. And so I always joked during the pandemic, it's the only time in my entire life that I will ever be considered essential for doing anything except paying taxes to the federal government. And so I'm just going to, bask in the limelight for sure. But I believe radio and TV were all considered to be essential workers.
But you were the newsroom. So like our sales department, I remember having meetings about
salespeople different. Yeah.
What were our salespeople going to do? And what were we going to do for our customers, and how were we going to weather the storm? Because, then our company's looking at having to pay. I mean, what a weird time. We're having to pay all these employees, and this is before they started rolling out this program and that program and whatever, but we have to pay all these employees a paycheck, but yet we don't really know how we're going to collect money from the customers. And most of those customers are people who have businesses in the event sector, so they're closed. So it was just this very strange time.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're needling at is trust, and we're talking about it in a societal sense, or even in a global sense, I suppose, in some ways, based on publicly disseminated information of a official nature, the official narrative. So I'll just start with trust from the platform of where most of us would think about it, which of course is our personal relationships, because that's where it's probably the most applicable to all of our lives, although there are great overlaps with the social aspect of society as well, with the whole official narrative. What is the government telling me? What is TV telling me? There's plenty of trust that goes into that as well. But most of the trust that we experience, or the trust issues, as they say, I have trust issues. You've heard that one a million times, especially from the person who cheats on you, right? I have trust issues. It's like, yeah, well, you're the problem. You see, if you wouldn't cheat, then there'd be no trust issues.
Diane. But, quit calling me.
So here's the thing with trust. It's one of Jack Hanson's simplest rhetorics that there is. Trust. Here's the deal. You either have it and you give it, or you don't. And that's it. It's no more exotic. It's no more complicated than that. You either have trust and you give it to others, or you do not. And that's it. And it doesn't mean that you can't be, that you can't be smart, I guess, that you can't have street smarts about who you trust. It doesn't mean that, I'm a trusting fellow and you can trust me because I'm honest and I don't lie and all these things. And I have trust and give trust, like Jack says. But then I encounter this guy who's playing, Three-Eyed Jack or the Shell Game or something on the street, who's clearly a ripoff, but I trust him with my dollar bills I keep giving him. No, I mean, you need to be scrutinous about who it is that you're going to do business with. If you know that it's fake, or if you know that it's a ruse, you can't fall for the scams just the same. That's different. What I'm saying is that in interpersonal relationships, that's the way that it works. And to me, if there would just be that line, because you can't help but trust somebody else. Unless you're peeking around corners and questioning them when they come home every night, where you been? What have you been up to? Who was that guy I saw you with? Was that you at the store today? I thought I saw you in a brown Audi. I don't have friends that have a brown Audi. What were you doing in there? Was that leather interior? You don't do that. Well, you trust them, obviously. You let your significant other, who you have, and some people don't have that issue because they have these open relationships where they just have sex with everybody. Okay. Well, that's fine, but trust will still come into the fold for certain things, because there are certain things that we all want kept private. We all want kept between the two of us, or that we don't really want to air out to the world. So anyway, then as we move up the ladder with trust, we get to this highly fractured dynamic, which is that official narrative from the governments of the world. And we can only deal with the one we live under, which is the U.S. government. So I don't have a problem with anybody, quite honestly, questioning anything that the government tells them at all. Mm-hmm. So I am not, call me a conspiracy nut, say, oh, Jack's another anti-vaxxer. I don't really care what you say. We're not going to get into that. I will just say flat out, if you questioned in any way what was being told to you by the government during the pandemic, or for that matter, on a Sunday in May when there wasn't a pandemic or anything else going on in the world that was of any real concern, I wouldn't blame you a bit, because it's an institution that not only has absolutely lied to us consistently for decades and decades, hundreds of years in the past, and we know about it because we've either rooted out the information or they've admitted it. And then they'll come right out and say, well, yeah, we lied to you because it's in your own best interest. So there's always a reason. And look, I'm not a head of state. I don't run a big country. I don't run a nation. I'm not the president. I'm imagining there are probably times where you've got to be kind of judicious about, look, we can't tell people this because millions more will die.
Right.
But I also think that excuse, that justification has been pushed way beyond the point where it's acceptable. And that we are now we're so used to being lied to. And now we live in this AI generation where we're being warned about deep fakes from Iran and Russia with our election here and everything. People, there's not even a touchstone for trust anymore. And that troubles me, because even when you're in a room full of liars, when the truth is still there somewhere to blow up like a balloon, or to go stand on like a square in Twister, or one of the circles in Twister, and say, okay, here it is. Here's the truth. I don't even think we have that right now. I don't even think you can locate that in a room anymore full of those liars, because nothing seems real anymore. And I don't know what to make of a circumstance that's that ambiguous from top to bottom,
Well, and I think that that's kind of one of the factors is the trust. And then you've got, I think, another factor, which is your ability to take the information and to either believe it or to act on it contrary. I take into consideration the masks. Okay, so if you go out to the store, you can go out to the store, but you need to put on this mask because we don't, we think it's going to help you and it's going to not spread a disease to other people. We saw that. So people refuse to wear the mask. Well, why are you refusing to wear the mask? Well, you can't tell me what to put on my face. Well,
no, and they could never get
that's true. And I guess, so I guess to me, it's almost like, you can believe that the information is true, but then you can also have this, I guess, ability to act and to then go a step further and to say, no, I'm not going to stay in the room. I'm going to leave. And so I think that was kind of the other factor that we were dealing with. And then you also kind of bring into this idea of agendas and thinking that everybody has an agenda. And like you said, we've been lied to so many times that is there really a foundation of trust there, or has that trust been eroded? Or is the information that you're giving me as an adult, I'm looking at this from just a kind of deduction standpoint. Do I believe that this information is factual?
Well, I think you could even be walking through a village full of lepers. I think you could literally be surrounded by people that have black spots all over their body and boils
combusting
and pus. And and you're still going to get some dissidents. You're still going to get some people who are, for whatever reason, just not going to do it. And I think that's the very nature of liberty, quite frankly. I think that and I didn't see that here in our town so much, but I remember during that time, I just wore the fucking mask, because it's just like, look, I don't want to deal with anybody who's going to get on me about it, first of all. It's not an enormous inconvenience for me, and I really don't want to take a public stance that I don't believe in any portion of what I'm being told, to the point where I just want to go in and get my goddamn groceries and leave.
Right.
So I just wore the mask, but I saw plenty of people, of course, who didn't. And to me, I'm sure they all had their reasons. Maybe they didn't have any reasons, but they always kind of represented those pillars of what it seems like all of us, at least abstractly, are kind of, dare I say, fighting for. I mean, fighting's maybe not the best word, but that we're all sort of striving for, that we all want to believe is real, that liberty that we have. We always wrap freedom and liberty together, but to me, they're very different. We are not free, period. I mean, like you've already heard Jack Hansen's spiel on that. Walk out your front door. As soon as you can walk out your front door and go any direction you want and come to an ocean before you are stopped by a fence or a board or anything, then you're free. We're not free. So that's not happening, and it's not going to anytime soon. But liberties are different. Personal liberties that are afforded you, I think that's where those come into play. And it reminds me a little bit, although sadly it's a little less happy, but have you ever seen the movie Dead Poets Society?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Robin Williams?
Yeah.
So a part that I will constantly, it seems like, point to for modeling this is the courtroom, or the courtyard scene, where he invites, Robin Williams as the instructor of this boys' school, this preparatory school, invites all of these young men to walk or prance or be silly in the courtyard. Walk in your own way. Have some kind of a stride. Walk with pride. Do the funky chicken arms as you walk. Do some kind of a moonwalk strut. Whatever. Just pick your flavor, find your vibration, and walk to that beat. And there is one of the more outstanding students in his class. I would say he's outstanding because he understands what the exercises are all about. He kind of gets, they're on the same wavelength, even though the student is young and Robin Williams is much more, advanced, I guess, in years. And he just stands there. He's just leaning against the wall. And Robin Williams looks at him and says, "Care to join us, Mr. Anderson?" And he says, "Exercising my right not to walk." And he says, "Very good, Mr. Anderson. You just illustrated the point." And so I think therein lies exactly what the people that I'm not wearing the fucking mask or whatever it might be. It's not just that. It's anything in the world. Those people who are, in fact, just, there's a dissenter in the ranks. It's them. And again, maybe there isn't a reason for it. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But I think the fact that exists at all, even if it's stupidity or ignorance that might breed it. I'm not a fan of either one of those things, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have those liberties with us. And I was wanting to see how far the powers that be were going to push the mandates, because I was wondering if we weren't going to have fines or even, we're going to start jailing people for not wearing their mask when they're in public, because that was the big next step for me, was just, okay, there are consequences now for you not doing what we are advising you to do, because then it moves from being something that you advise to being a law. Of course, there's a lot of legal steps that have to be done in order to get to that point. They would have had to do something, I would guess, through state legislatures or the federal government. I don't know. To me, it's all trite and boring in so many ways. It's too much paperwork and too much red tape. And really what we should have been concerned about is each other's safety. But how we arrive there, different ways. And again, I don't blame people at all for saying, screw this. I don't believe a word they're telling us. And, I knew people that didn't think it was true at all. I had people in the beginning, people whose work that I followed for years, actually. We talked about David Icke some time ago. He was one that said the pandemic is fake. Flat out, it's false. It's another thing they're running. Well, I don't know about that, because, I didn't know anybody who died from COVID, but I knew people who had lost people to COVID eventually. Mm-hmm. And I got it several times, and I knew people who got it several times and were gravely ill. So I think something happened, obviously. I don't think we can look at it and say it's not real, but I understand where they were coming from at the time, because they're saying, because it's a byproduct of being lied to. It's a byproduct of being lied to for ulterior motivations over and over and over again. It's like holding the treat in front of the dog and pulling your hand away 9,000 times in a row, and then wondering why the fucking dog bit you when he finally had the chance.
Right. And I think that I personally am a huge believer in just being a cooperative person, in cooperation. And
it's easier that way, yeah.
It's also kind of one of those things where, this is not an isolated island of Jack Hansen or Michael Elliott. This is, we every day rely on somebody, whether we like to believe it or not. You are relying, just waking up and turning on the light switch, that somebody showed up to work that day at the power plant.
No, I'm relying on hundreds of people, thousands
exactly.
to make my day happen.
I think that was really a reminder of, I might not know a postal worker, but I obviously respect what they do, and I need them, because I'm not going to get my Amazon packages from Jeff Bezos unless so-and-so, is able to do their job. And so I think it was also a reminder, too, as to, even though we like to believe that we're so independent and we're so isolated and not affected by what somebody else does, we really are. And I think that, to one degree, I also am kind of taking it to the point where I really hope that in my lifetime, one, we don't have to go through something like that ever again, and two, that it's not something more dangerous or drastic that does end up causing people to go into some kind of social chaos or hysteria, because I kind of feel like we were shown the underbelly of society as well, in that there are going to be people who are just they're not the people you're going to want on your team when things go bad.
Yeah, there's remember they made those 2 asteroid apocalypse movies in the late 90s that got real big. You know, the big asteroid's going to come and smash us. And one day it will. I don't know if we'll be here for it or not, but one of them was the kind of the more rock and roll one, the more Hollywood one, which was Armageddon, where they had, you know, Aerosmith in the soundtrack, and the cast was a lot more, was it Bruce Willis or no, it wasn't Bruce Willis. Who was in that?
In Armageddon, yeah, it was Ben Affleck.
Yeah, okay, so you got
Bruce Willis.
That typical cavalcade of, you know, those hunks, and, you know, then they had Liv Tyler in it and stuff. And then they had the other one, which was kind of the more blue collar or the more white collar asteroid movie, which was the one I actually prefer, which is Deep Impact. And I just know in Deep Impact, I don't remember what they do in Armageddon when the big asteroid's coming to smash into Earth. But in Deep Impact, they sort of imply that, yeah, the nuts and bolts society will loosen around the edges, but Morgan Freeman, who plays the president, enacts a curfew, and the government is very straightforward and honest about all of the activities, and they do a price fix on everything. They freeze prices on everything, so there's no gouging of gas, or, you know, life goes on. Absolutely, positively the most laughably fictitious part of that movie by far and away. The likelihood, I would say, of the giant asteroid coming towards us and us shooting a rocket full of specialized people into space to land on said rock and blow it into, oops, one big stone now and one smaller one with a nuclear warhead, vastly more likely than us keeping our shit together enough for the months before it might hit us to actually not kill each other, and society would. I mean, we exist on a strand of dental floss every day.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me. Have you ever driven in LA traffic before? Or, I mean, I think I think LA traffic's got nothing on Atlanta, Georgia either. I mean, I'm talking, you know, 9 lanes, 95 miles an hour, wall to ass. I mean, hundreds of people just booking it, man. I mean, and no one's crashing. It's not the scene of a 600 car pileup. And I know, having done that a few times, one time in particular, I got into that, and it alerted me to the fact that that is the world that we live in every day. We are all driving. We are white knuckling at 95. I don't know whether we're hoping or praying or what we're doing, but we're choosing to go that fast for whatever reason, that many of us. And somehow every day, even though there are wrecks and even though a few people die and that floss gets twanged a little bit or twinged here and there, and we have a mass shooting now, which is horrible that we've lived in a day and age where we have those things happen. But, you know, we just kind of go right on and things just keep moving. And I fear that equation because, to me, the bomb is ticking. You know, to me, the time is running out on when that strand, we're going to a great number of us are going to fall off of that strand. And I'm not sure that it's going to be the big bang that all of us think and probably hope deep down that it will be, because it'll be so much easier to be vaporized by a giant asteroid or a supervolcano than for, as you said, all of the shit around us falling apart to the degree that
it will.
It will when we have a major problem such as that one. So
in not to be a downer, but in 2182, there is a large asteroid that could potentially hit Earth. And so that's 158 years from now. And so it wouldn't be my grandchildren, but it would be my great-grandchildren that could potentially be alive when that occurs. Now, potentially hit Earth, there are a lot of asteroids that get close enough to Earth. I think the one that they had talked about just recently was like 54 feet in diameter, and it was like 990,000 miles away from Earth. So, I mean, far enough. But they are actually saying that in 158 years, there might actually be an asteroid that does impact Earth. But who knows what the size of that asteroid's going to be, or if Bruce Willis is going to go out there with Ben Affleck and blow it up, or whatever.
Ben Affleck's teeth will still be around, that's for sure, but he won't be.
No.
Keep in mind that the NEO project, for lack of knowing what the whole acronym is, the Near Earth Object Identification Project, has canvassed a good chunk of the northern hemisphere now, but the southern hemisphere is vastly unmapped, and objects can be large asteroids, comets even, can be obscured by the sun and the inner planets before they swing around to have a look and say hello at us. So we could get a sneak attack from one, so to speak.
Sooner.
Jack Hansen is not a prophet, and he doesn't have a lot of psychic moments, but I will just air this publicly. I know people that know this because I've told them, and it's just another, goofy podcaster at this point saying something, just kind of talking out of his ass. But I do believe, I really feel like I know in some ways, that in 2029, I don't know when, but I've felt for years now that in 2029, at some point, something will happen that will be global. And I feel like it will be a natural event. I feel like it would be an asteroid or perhaps a large volcanic eruption, one that would disrupt the whole Earth, something. I guess it could be nuclear, but I've felt for a while now that 2029 will be our grand wake-up call, that will basically serve to, yes, many will be lost, but it will also be kind of our last metering stick for let's get it together, guys, because this is the big reminder of what's at stake. It will be the thing in the modern era that happens that basically wakes all of us up and says, okay, this is that fragile, I'm standing on that piece of dental floss, and this is how precious this particular incarnation is. I'll be sorry to see Jack Hansen go because I kind of like this guy, and I'm used to him. But I don't fear that whatever this energy is, this spark that makes me, that's going to go on no matter what. So I'm not really afraid of anything but what most of us are afraid of, which is just the terror of going through the event itself, whatever it might be. That's why all of us just want to die this quiet death in our sleep. I think deal with that.
I think most of us are more afraid of, we have a greater fear of our fellow man than we do what might be around the next horizon for us. And I think that would be the most miserable thing about it is, like you say, I think it takes a natural occurrence before enough people get on board as a collective to say, okay, we've experienced this together. And in a way, COVID kind of did that to a very minuscule side, where you and I wouldn't probably be having this kind of discussion looking at social upheaval or, dissonance if we didn't have that happen to us, right? So if we don't have these events happen to us, they're almost necessary through time in order for a population to really have this is the path we're going to go on.
I think they serve a purpose by default if the civilization like ours is going on the wrong track. But I think they're going to happen no matter what. The events are completely neutral. I think I do believe there's an intelligence behind them. And so are they timed to a degree? Yeah, I would think that maybe they are cyclical and that they line up with everything. I was just checking out something that I wrote a little while ago. There are no accidents in life. Everything happens for a reason. Therefore, the universe doesn't make any mistakes, and neither do you. The only way one makes a mistake is if they willfully engage in something they know will hinder this fact from being true. So again, unless you use your free will for self-sabotaging purposes, I don't think there are any mistakes that are made. I think something's working with you all the time to just keep you in stride with the vibration of everything. I had probably the worst nightmare I've ever had recently, and I hasten to share it because it's so wicked, I guess, but so eldritch. But I guess, it goes along these lines. So I can't help but think to share just a piece of it. Not that I want to think about it, but, again, I do kind of believe that most dreams are shown to you for some kind of a reason. You're airing out something. First of all, let me say this. I've had the giant asteroid dream before because I remember for a time I was thinking about it for a while because it just fascinates me. Like it should, I think, anybody, like the notion of that kind of calamity occurring, that kind of cosmic impact. So I had a dream one night where I was standing in the foyer, the atrium actually of my old childhood home. And I was on the phone with my brother, and it was the morning, and the skies were mostly clear, maybe a few like light high angels sitting up there. And all of a sudden, there was horizontal lightning discharging across the blue sky. And I was just thrown. It was like, this is not right. And so I walked out into the carport, which was attached. And you know how there's that knowing in dreams that's so cool. It was basically like the voice of something much bigger saying, all right, kiddo, you've been wanting to see what this looks like? We're about to show you what this looks like. And this is what this looks like. And here it came. And there was no, like in the movies where, you can see it coming in for days in advance and such. It was right on us right now. And it was stunning. It was amazing. And it was a startling dream, but it was also like, whoa. I still remember it. I always will. But this other one that I had recently, I was with my girlfriend, and we were sort of on this island in a residential area. It was a series of connected houses that were floating in the middle. You've seen those driven in towns that are old, or cities that are old enough and they've done traffic revisions, and there's that island, that trapezoid, and it just doesn't fit. But it's because they can't rezone it, or they can't tear it down, or they can't get the city to, that sort of thing. So there's houses or businesses that are on this strange chunk of land, but the streets go around it at an odd angle, and it's an obtuse stop sign after, that sort of thing. So we were sort of in that area. It was nighttime, and I was telling her, and there were some other people there too, and I was trying to console her, don't worry, we'll figure out a way to get out. We'll sneak out, and we'll get to somewhere we can get to a boat or a plane or something, and we'll get out of here, and we'll get to safety. Because what had happened is exactly what we're talking about. So what had happened was society had started collapsing. And unfortunately, for as many good people as there are in the world, the really, really, really bad people, the scourge of the planet, were united in a cause to just wreak chaos. They were just wreaking havoc and killing and maiming and raping and pillaging and anything you can imagine. It was horrible. And they broke into this place where we were, and I quickly ushered us to a back bedroom where we hid. Of course, things tie in from your own past and present, too. So this back bedroom wound up being my childhood bedroom. Actually, not my childhood bedroom, but when I kind of arrived and got to be more of a tween, they moved me into my brother's old bedroom. It was that bedroom in the back of my childhood house. And we hid under the bed, and we could hear them coming. And it was two things that really stood out. The first thing was the noise of this horde. It was horrible. I mean, I just can't. The cacophony of death and mayhem and violence was, I mean, you know how you have a vivid dream, and it's just like, there's not a movie producer alive that, I wouldn't want that out there anyway. I mean, it was savage beyond all merits. It was savage. The other thing that stood out was just the knowledge, I guess, or just the notion of the fear that was creeping in of you're about to be, because they're not going to leave the bed unturned. They're literally ransacking everything. So you're about to go.
An ocean of humanity. Yeah.
You could go very quickly. And that's what I was praying for at the very end of the dream before I woke up and was just almost in tears, just upset about this whole thing. Was I just hope that we go. I hope that we go quickly. I hope that they just bash us in or do whatever. I hope that they don't decide to do anything, because that's the fear is in your last moments. No one wants to be afraid. No one wants to be torn apart or, that sort of thing. But it was awful. And I really do feel like it was kind of shown to me because it's like, well, Jack, this is one possible path. So be aware of that because your individual choices, I truly believe that right now we are all making the choice on which of those timelines, if you will, which of those paths we want to be on. And your decisions every day decide which of those paths you will fall on. So make the best possible decisions you can for what you know the best way to be right and just and true and good and loving and nurturing and caring for yourself and everybody and the world around you and the planet, and you'll be okay. But the further away you slip from those choices with your decisions, and they'll be evident to the universe, the more you're going to get ratcheted back to a timeline where this horde is more likely to show up. And, is it kind of a fear of God thing? In a way, but I don't think it's that judgy. I think it's more putting the power with you and saying where you end up is going to be up to you ultimately. And that's exactly what the Koyani Scotzi basically, and we talked about this on our last episode too, that's what the Hopis have said, is yes, collectively our decisions will ultimately lead to either this timeline that ends very abruptly and badly for us, or it goes on for a while longer because we've come out of the dark, per se. But I think this was letting me know that it was highly more individual than that there are, in fact, an infinite number of timelines, and right now we're at a crossroads where you can choose one of those, but you're not consciously choosing it so much as you are putting yourself on one of them based on your behaviors, based on your thoughts, based on your actions towards others. And I don't know. I found that empowering. Some people might think that that's really scary, but I think that was empowering for me because it made me step up and want to do better.
Make the most of the time you have.
For not just myself either.
Right. Fascinating. Oh, don't you just love dreams?
Most of the time. No, like I said, yeah, that was, even though that was a horribly frightening dream, I think it was a good one for me to have. So,
well, you stay out of the massive horde in the meantime.
You as well, Michael. We'll see you again next go.
All right, take care.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.